curious if you can paint a picture of your 1% pause method for someone who's drowning in chaos right now. The guy wakes up, he's overwhelmed, he's anxious about his future, he's stuck in his job, his relationship is struggling. Where does he start when everything feels like it needs to change all at once?
This is very tricky because um, we talk about mentorship before. You're a coach, I'm a coach. There is a lot of coaches there. What we are like a lamp bottom. You need to find the right lamp to light. And I had this man who came to me. It's so funny story. He came to me. He was a big boss. He had like 3,000 people under him. And he was like dressed in a suit, shiny shoes. And he crossed his arm and sit opposite of me. And he said, "My wife sent me here. What can you do with me?" I mean, it's a impossible situation. But I'm not going to tell how I lured him into half a year coaching with me. But after 3 months, we found he was talking about his anger. I'm never angry. Sure, no, never. Or maybe a little bit. Yeah, where? Yeah, when I come home at night, my younger son, he opens all the lights in the rooms when he goes through, and he never closed the light. So I'm a bit irritated about this lapse. Oh, that's perfect, I said. What do you mean perfect? Yes, because when you come home tonight, the lamps will be on. 100% sure. So I want you to do like this. You just stop at the lamp, don't close it, take a deep breath, and then you can hit the lamp or do whatever you want. What happened was this. 3 days later, he had this big meeting. There was like 58 countries in this meeting on video calls. It was a very important meeting. And he was like the big boss, and normally he talks a lot. But when he sat down, he felt the same irritation as the lamp bottom. So what he did, he took a deep breath and then he was observing what all the other people did. And after a while, they got nervous because he wasn't acting like he used to do with this irritation in the body. But when he spoke, the whole company changed direction. And it was only because we find this irritation he had when he came home and all the lights in the house was on. And this is the thing why you need people mentor. It doesn't need to be me or you, but you need to find this person. Maybe he's only 10 minutes before you. Maybe he's 10 years before you, but they will guide you to find this button so you can turn on the light. It's a very, it's a true story, but it's so profound. It's so genuine. I love to tell it because that's what you have to find. And that's the 1%. And when you find that right bottom, you don't need to focus on the other 99 because they will automatically change because of this chain reaction that I was talking about in the beginning.
You were born clinically dead for 45 minutes. Doctors said game over, then cerebral palsy, and they told you never have a family, never function in any normal capacity. Then, when you were 20 years old, you sailed across the Atlantic with what you called a quote, impossible quote crew. Then later, you became a Paralympic world record holder in the long jump in 1996. Take me back to that time at sea, 30 days without seeing land in any, just no horizon. What goes through your mind when you're out there, and what memories come up or thoughts when I recount to you this pretty amazing history that you have?
Yeah, it was a crazy trip because we were really the first kind of disabled people crossing the Atlantic. And there was me with cerebral palsy, there was this guy without legs, there was this lady without arms, and there was a blind guy. So it was a crazy people going, and we had a captain. But when I were there, it's the nature, the power of the ocean. The waves when we have storms, they were like 10 meters over the boat. It's like a giant wall. You can't really, you're so small. And we didn't see land for like 30 days. Only water, water, water. So it's, it's one of my most craziest trips. I have never sailed before, and I have never sailed after. So it's like a crazy experience to be on this boat. I don't know if this answered the question you told me, but that's life. This is what you should do with your life. Do different experience. Be aware of where you're going. Sitting on this boat in the waves, and we have 10 days with no wind. We couldn't go anywhere, and all these different dimension. But you have that every day. I met this woman once. Her world was very narrow, but when she went shopping at the nearest shop, it was I need to go on the Atlantic Ocean to experience the same as she had walking to the next shop. She had the same experience, and I was jealous because I need so much more crazy stuff than go to the shop. Instead, good perspective, so you understand. I really want people to do more, see more. I didn't have the possibility because they told me I couldn't do that, couldn't do that. But some I listened to, some I didn't. And still, I don't listen to people. I'm a doer. I do stuff all my life.
Yeah, I think I'm really struck by this deep innate desire within us all as humans, but particularly I find with men to go on these adventures to rise to the challenge and to find the more in life. But it seems like you have a particular bend of, I would call it helpful ignorance, right? To defy odds and not let them get in the way. And while many guys haven't had the exact experiences you have, a lot of them do feel lost at sea per se and really downtrodden by what life has given them. And I'm curious, how do you stay focused and move forward when you genuinely don't know where you're going? You mentioned being out at sea and not having any sort of land. I think that's a really good analogy for where a lot of men feel psychologically in their life. And I'm just curious how you navigate that space.
When I stopped with my sport career, I had done sport literally 24/7 for like 10 years. There was nothing else. So I sat down and I had this metaphor, like I'm on this train and I'm a passenger on this train and it's going straight. Where is this train going? So I thought I had to strangle the conductor. I had to go and stop the train and reinvent myself, because we go through life like half dead, half alive, because we don't fulfill all our dreams that we have when we were small. They don't appear. So then we skip them, and then life's coming. We go to school, we get to work, we marry, get children, and your passion, your train, your airplane, helicopter that will bring you life to another level, it disappears. And then when you're 35, 40, you have a heart attack, you get stressed, you burn out because you don't have that part of your life where you stop. What am I really doing? Where am I really going with my life? What part of my life gets me joy, happiness, that gives me the right energy for the other boring stuff that I also have to do, but those 10, 12% gives you the energy for the other 90 or 88% that you have to work, you have to take care of the family, children, whatever.
I agree. I think it speaks to several things, that come up in me. I definitely agree that life can pass you by and you simultaneously know that you're made for more and also wonder how to get there. And, you do ask people, what are you doing with your life? Which is such a radically simple question, but most men avoid it because it's terrifying, right? They might have vague dreams or ambitions, but no clear path. And maybe there's myriad of reasons for that. They've been let down or disappointed. They're insecure in who they are. But you write about keeping the boat in the harbor, refurbishing it, preparing it for a journey that might never come, and how people become dead corpses when the dream dies. So, how do you find meaning and direction when you genuinely don't know what you're supposed to be?
For me, it's about testing. I test a lot of stuff, but it's how you test, the purpose of testing. Because normally when you test something, you're very excited, very happy the first 2 weeks, the first 5 weeks, and then you dive down. So when I test, for example, I can tell you a story. First real thing I did when I stopped sport was paintings. I paint. And I was so happy, and I could really block out everything in my life when I paint. I'm not a good painter, but it doesn't matter. It blocked out everything else. So I told myself, let's do 100 paintings. It's like a goal. What happens then is that 10 paintings, anybody can paint. 20, anybody. But when you have 30, then you have a problem, because the painting gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So you can't have them at home. So you have to rent a studio. A studio costs money. So then you have to sell the painting to get the money for the studio. So it's like a whole process until you are at 100. And then when you are there, then you can decide, do I want to continue? Is this really, because all the backstep, all the downs, all the ups. You've gone through them when you've done 100. So another example, short one. I did 100 videos. Next year, I did 100 live videos, 100 days in a row. Then I did music. I did 100 music. I don't continue with the music, but I continue with my art. I do some movies sometimes. So 100 for me, that's like the process, like the test. Should I continue or should I stop? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's really helpful because it's what I would call challenging yet true. Like it's not this insane number like 1,000, but it's also, like you're saying, not a overly easy achievable goal like 10. And I think when a lot of guys think about testing, to use that framework, we have this perfectionistic mindset, right? It's all or nothing. Either I'm the best or I'm the worst. I'm successful or I'm a failure. And I think what you're pointing to is that you had curiosity in the painting and the videos and even taking this sailing trip. And you have the curiosity. That's the start. And I think if you're a guy listening out there, pay attention to what you're curious about. And it actually, if I'm understanding what you're saying, it's less important like it's a right curiosity, it's your curiosity. And then you put it to the test. And for you, your threshold is 100. But any guy listening out there, find your threshold that feels, again, challenging yet approachable. And then just commit to it. It sounds like for you, throughout the making of the 100 videos or art, I'm sure some days you woke up and you felt, "Oh, this is awesome. I'm enjoying it." Like you're saying, very life-giving. And then there's other days where you're like, "Oh gosh, I don't know, am I good at this?" But it actually doesn't matter because it's about what you learn about yourself and whatever you're curious about that really the lesson to take away makes it worth.
And the only time I could paint was Sunday from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Sometimes when I came there, I couldn't paint, but I didn't leave. I was in my studio from 9 to 3. That's it. Even if I don't paint or paint, because then your brain, after a while, oh, now we are going painting. So it prepares you when you have a schedule. So it's not randomly things. You really need to be accountability to yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think a big takeaway in that is that you're gonna be paying a cost either way. Whether you take a risk or an investment or not, the opportunity cost is you're filling your time doing something. And for a lot of us, it is aimless, right? It's I'm just scrolling on the phone or I'm just going out and completely partying, video games, whatever it is. And I think you're setting aside that time on Sunday speaks to the intentionality of it. To say, I need a dedicated time of focus to really properly assess this curiosity and see where it lies. And maybe at the end of the 100 Sundays of painting, you realize, okay, that was really fun. I don't really want to continue. Maybe you said, you know what, it's really fun and I want to continue. Or maybe you said, it's really fun and I'm really good at it. So I might pursue this more viable option for some sort of income. And it extends beyond just a random curiosity and now it becomes a concentrated effort towards something. And that's a question I have to ask myself is how present am I to my life? And I can say I'm going to do something, and I might do it, but what's my level of engagement while I ask? And I think your commitment to setting aside that 9 to 3 really shows there was hours in that that or maybe you didn't, but the point is that you showed up and that you tried.
Can I tell you a funny story? I was born in Sweden. It's very cold there. So I had my art studio in Sweden. And then I moved to Thailand because I had pain, cramp. If you shake your body, your muscle like I have done for 40 years, you get cramps. So many people with cerebral palsy, they don't live 50, 60 years old because they have to take pain medicine and then they have organ failure. But I moved to Thailand. That's a different story. So I was sitting with these people, like 20 people, around this table, and they asked me, "What are you going to do in Thailand?" "Yeah, I will open my gallery and sell my paintings." "For how much?" "Well, oh, I have to think American dollar now. So it's like $2,000. And they looked at me and said, "You're crazy. You live 2 hours from Pattaya and you can buy a copy of Monet or Picasso for like $100. How can you sell something for $2,000?" The thing is, I did never, have a different mindset. So if I think it's possible, it's possible. 1 month or maybe 2 months after, I had this gallery art exhibition in Bangkok, my first real one in Thailand. And I sold one painting. It was an enormous 2 by 2 meter painting. I don't know in feet, but so I sold it for like $3,000, maybe even $4,000. And I mean, that's an enormous sum, even for in the Western world. A newspaper write about a business newspaper write about this. And all the 20 people in this table, they just shut up because they understood it doesn't matter how famous you are, not famous, it's your mindset. I'm gonna do this no matter what. So I sold the painting. And when I sold it, it was no more interest because I had achieved my personal goal. I have to have personal goal. And so I like to tell that story because I live in a fishing village 4 hours from Bangkok. Bangkok is not in nowhere. They don't know who I am, and still I can do this whatever I want.
I'm personally encouraged by that because I think as I start to do this work with men, it's easy to get insecure about what you're speaking to, which is I need to meet certain societal validations before I have the belief that it's worth being validated. And that story flips that narrative on its head and says, at the end of the day, you as an individual have to be confident in yourself. Confidence is different than pride. What I not hear in your story is I'm the best painter. How could someone not pay 2,000? All you did was out of humility, that word in the Greek, humus or the Latin means to be grounded in reality. We get to choose reality to a certain degree. Obviously, we can't choose life in totality to its full degree, but our perception and belief in ourselves can. For you, you were grounded in the reality that within the work through the painting. It wasn't like you were fraud or you were doing it for the first time. But also you realize I don't need to reach this certain status before I put it out there. And, I've always in business it is true, right? Is that the price someone pays is value they see that they're buying. And so that price is just simply contingent on perceived value. And for you, you saw the value in yourself, said it realistically. Again, it was maybe challenging, but approachable, right? It wasn't like $1,000,000, but it also wasn't like $10 for a copy. And also, I think that particular story, the detail of someone saying, "Well, you could buy a copy," ironically, is such a good analogy for how we see creating today's world, right? Many of us are trying to be copies. We think, okay, well, it's cheaper. And we look on social media, and there's a million versions of whatever we think is uh, selling nowadays, right? There's a million prints of possible million Instagram influencers and life coach motivators. But I think what you were getting at with your painting and selling it, that there's only one of you, and there's only one of you that can articulate the craft and creativity that went on that canvas for this that perceived value from someone of, $4,000, I think is the narrative meant you to take away. You're not gonna be perfect, you're not a copy, and you need to figure out, "What am I contributing?" Not just contributing, what am I contributing in a way where someone would pay money for that, whether that's emotional currency or actual currency, to express the value of what I'm selling.
Yeah, and that's very interesting because um, um, when you tell like that, I think my value is the willingness of people paying for something I'm doing, and it's depend of my story of the painting of whatever I do. It's my story behind how long time did it take me to create the painting. That could be 5 minutes, it could be 1 hour, but how many hours did it take me to that point so I could create that painting? That's another angle. And most people, there is this, they say you have to do 5,000 hours or 3,000 hours, this happened, 4,000 that, whatever. I broke a world record. It was 15,000 hours to run at the Paralympic. It takes 6 seconds to break a world record, but 15,000 hours training, that's not normal. But if you have passion and you do 1,000 hours with passion, that 1,000 will fly away like it was 100 hours. And when you have done 1,000 hours, then you are skilled enough to do your own special interpretation of what you're doing. And when you have done that, that you can sell because that's you understand what I'm saying. So it doesn't matter if you're good, it doesn't matter if you have talent. I wasn't the best long jumper I met in my life. There were so many better, but they trained less than me. I trained much more than them. It's about how long time have I done this to learn to be special in whatever I want to do. And that it doesn't matter what subject or whatever. And then you have the joy, you have the people say, wow, that's different. because you have this your way of seeing the world. And that's what people want to have. Your way of seeing the world. You can sell it, you can give it for you for other people. But that's the point. What I think is very important. And everybody can do this. It doesn't matter where you're from, what you're doing. AI can't copy it. They can't copy you. Doesn't matter. They will never copy you.
I agree with that. And it's so striking, I find, with how many men struggle with self-worth and feeling like they matter. And while it's important to not hyper focus on your individual efforts as if, you're the only one that matters, what I often say is, but you do matter. There's this space that you have to take up in life that only you can fill. And it seems like for you, you had that belief that regardless of what people think about the space you take up, or if you need to take it up or not, then you continue to find your path and you continue to make decisions out of the belief, the value of yourself. And, I think the second thing there is that many of us struggle, I would say, way more with not spending enough time trying. I think the argument could be made, yes, you could spend too much time trying, and that's fair. But that perfectionist mindset often assumes that we are spending too much time committing to something without the reality of spending that doing it. Meaning that I would rather someone, including myself, do the test to say, okay, yes, 1,000 hours, 2,000 hours may too much to something, but why don't you try? And I think that's the biggest thing. Many of us give up after 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 attempts, 4 attempts. And I think what you're getting at is that it is a lot more noble and worthwhile to put yourself to the test and then scale back or pump the brakes from trying to fully commit to something and then pushing back instead of from the 0 to 1 step already pushing back and essentially writing yourself off for the amount of time needed for that. And yeah, I'm just curious for you, where does that mindset come from? Say, I need to give myself to this fully and not just write it off and
I had good mentors. That's one of the lack in the world is mentors, people to see up to. I mean, I have thought about all the mentors I have had over the years. I had an Egyptian mentor. He wrote the anthem of Saudi Arabia, and he was an Egyptian. I had him in music, and he was so disappointed in me that I chose to be a long jumper instead of going to higher school. But he had wrote the Saudi anthem, who still is the anthem of Saudi Arabia. And he did something special. He went to every major city in Saudi Arabia and took one note, one note. What's the symbol note of this city? So he went to 10, 15, 20 cities and took one note, and then he wrote the anthem. So he put together, I mean, it's an amazing story. And I think this is what we have to do. We have to pick something and then combine it to our life. And there I learned this way. It's one note. It's not the whole, it's one thing at a time. It's one step to Mount Everest. It's one lap in the swimming pool. I grew up with this mentality, this way of thinking. I think I learned when I was very young how to think to achieve whatever I wanted. Then I read in many books, and the books confirm this is the way you do it. So the theoretical side is not enough. You have the practical side too. But men, especially between 18 and 34, 35, they don't have a mentor. We are lack of learning how to live a life, how to. I heard uh, some ancient story that Caesar had a mentor, and the mentor teach him how to live a life. And this is 2000 years ago. I had many different mentors. I grew up with 6 people from India. They came to Stockholm to study, and they were living with us for 4.5 years. So I experienced an Egyptian music mentor, Indian people, and I was living in Sweden. So I got this influence from so many different cultures. So I don't, it's not an easy answer, but you understand, I have trained my brain. And I used to tell people what I think today. I'm 100%. That's, that's the truth that I believe today. In 1 year, if that's the same truth in 1 year, then I have done something stupid. Because next year it should be something totally different. Because then I have developed myself to something new. Because we have to challenge ourselves to develop new skills, new ways of seeing how I see my life. And the more I can see, the more I can experience, the more I think I have the value of my own life.
I agree, and, science backs this up to know that as humans, we were made to be adaptable, and I think there was some essentially study that revealed that every 7 years, we get completely new cells in our body, so we're constantly changing biologically, but you said this word mindset, mentally, we tend to get caught in these concrete patterns, that are hard and that are rigid. This is the way I see the world, and it takes change, it takes novelty, it takes challenge to break those concrete ways of thinking. And we don't wanna blow up everything in our life. We need some sort of stability and foundation to continue to return to that we don't question. Essentially, if we question everything all at once, all the time, probably go into psychosis. But at the same time, once you have built that foundation, that general sense of who you are, that is that kind of steadfast, yeah, stability. Then, to your point, as you're building the house, you have to constantly make improvements and adjustments and be dynamic. And many of us men struggle with that rigidity. And it really costs us from substance abuse to antisocial behavior and crimes a lot of times, healthy relationships or a lack of relationships, right? Because we have such a narrow view of ourselves, of the world, and we need ability to question. We've talked a lot about the ability to see potential, to go after that, and not let the hard things get in the way of changing and pursuing our passion goals. But I'm curious if you could describe what happens in those moments when you want to quit, not the triumphant Paralympic moments, the times your body is physically shaking from cerebral palsy. People are staring, and you're thinking maybe they were right to do this, or maybe the journey out at sea when you the motives and the outcomes. How do you distinguish between this wisdom that says this path is working versus the voice that was just scared?
I don't think like that. I just focus and then all you think because I think it's because I have cerebral palsy. People see me differently. But in my head, I'm like you. I know differently. And also, I forget that I have cerebral palsy. It's like a reminder from people around me. But in my head, I'm a normal guy. I have the same problem with all the stuff. What should I eat today? Or if does this girl really like me? All that bullshit that we are thinking in our head. I don't know. Or how should this person with cerebral palsy think about this? No, I'm have the same struggle. And why I go out and talk like this on pods and public speaking and all this stuff. And that's why I like your program, because this is a conversation. My cerebral palsy is just an extra element on the top. But and I have this crazy thing with moving to another continent, Paralympic, world record, all these others. So cerebral palsy, that's just an extra thing that I have. But the people, when they listen to me, really listen and stop. I like you, but I do something about it. I challenge myself. I practice. I couldn't speak good enough English. That's why I did the YouTube videos 100, because then I learned how to see myself and speak better English. And then I was afraid to doing live on YouTube, so I practiced my fear of doing live. And all this, I have my own agenda, my own thing, and people don't know that. It's only for me. And when I have achieved that, then I'm happy. I don't even tell people that I've some things I do, but most of them is for me. It's for me. I can give you an example. We had this wild cat. So when I came out in Thailand, the kitchen is outside. So we had this wild cat. So when you came out, it ran away 10, 20 meters away. You couldn't get closer. So I thought, okay, I will practice to be present, and I will have this cat sit at my lap in my knee. So, so I thought, okay, how should I go out the kitchen and acknowledge the cat so it doesn't run away? I mean, this took months to get close to the cat. But after like 3, 4, 5 months, the cat sat at my knee. And my wife said, how did you do that? And that's my personal goal. I have that in a lot of stuff that I do because I want to challenge myself. Now this was a cat, but you understand what I mean. So I have my own agenda and people can't get in that. So whatever people tell me, I don't really care. I listen to them, but I have my own small goals. Some are very crazy, some are normal. You understand what I mean?
You really respect your owning of your life and of your person and of the narrative that you as the individual who is living it gets to believe about yourself, but also tell others. No one else has the right to tell you who you are but you. And I just want to say I'm really honored that you spoke to that because I think we live in a society that gets caught up in the labels, in the categories, and we're always trying to peg people down and say, like, well, you're either this or you're that, or you're in or you're out, and you're accepted, you're not accepted. And especially in this conversation with masculinity, this is the reason why I started this show and I'm doing the work is that, um, again, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's some sort of general consensus, let's say resonance for most men of things they relate to in their experiences as men, but it's certainly not limited to that. And I think many men either try to over project what they think they should be, or they under express who they're meant to be, both out of fear of what other people find. And I like what you said is that beneath the physicality, who you are, the way that people could easily see you is your spirit and your person, your deeper sense of self that really is the most thing about you. And that is the person that's living day to day. We allow ourselves to get caught up with the external and the demographical category, right? The sexual orientation or the race or the nationality or socioeconomic status. And we miss that human spirit of which that person expresses themselves out of. And that person is the one that's living in every moment. And I think that is expressed in the story about you taking 30 days at sea, you trying to break record, you learning the English language is all out of the same person that approaches a cat and tries to get it to sit on its essentially, even if it's as small as that story you just told or as big and grandiose, those other ones I also told, it doesn't matter. The mindset, the person that you are that's living that. And to use that analogy with the cat, as a therapist, I work a lot with traumatized people, and that story of the cat, I think, really accurately, encapsulates the process of healing, which is, many times we all have wounds that make us run, they make us fearful, they make us reactive, and we want to create a great distance between ourselves and either the thing that wounded us or things that remind us of that. And it's only out of finding safety and security fastest, which you keep story that over and over, just like the cat, we warm up, get closer, we start to reconnect, we start to get a clear understanding that while I was rooted and disconnected, it's not a permanent thing. I get to change my relationship to myself and others. And then over time, we actually reestablish that bond. Was once a scared, fearful cat is now this trusting, warm, little creature that's, nuzzling itself up to you. And our human spirits are the same way. And for any guy listening out there, you may have started out of a lot of fear and isolation, but just like Michael has done with the cat, with who you are as a person, start to get to know that well, start to love that person, start to reconnect with that person and love who you know it in a way where you really reestablish that reflect your relationships in a way that we were always meant to as humans.
Yeah, and what an aspect of this is authentic. I'm authentic in whatever I do, even if it's a cat or painting or long jumping. I'm all in, but I'm all in an adventure. For me, it was an adventure with the cat. It was an adventure crossing the Atlantic Ocean. It's because you have to push your way of thinking. You have to push the way of thinking, especially when people come and are with me for 1 week, or 2 weeks. They are like, but you're doing this every day. How can I do that? Yeah, you have to practice. If you want to live a life, you have to see things that normal people don't see. They just pass it. And you don't need to go to Thailand. They are outside your window. They are on the buses. They are on the way to work. They are in the where you shopping, coffee shop. They are everywhere. Everywhere you can have the same practice, the same thinking, the same. And so well, I used to tell people, I don't know if you will feel better or worse after my courses or whatever issue to pick from me, but I can guarantee you one thing. You will see your world differently. And that means you will do different decision where you want to go. That's the only thing that's worth learning, because then you are able to test all these different stuff that have stopped you from testing before. You get the courage to test it. So be
Yeah, I appreciate you
authentic.
saying that. Yeah, I think the thing that came up for me while you were sharing is that the 99% transformation is in the 1%, but we have to have the humility and the presence, or the awareness, I should say, to address issue. And again, for any guy listening out there, the temptation is, my relationships are a wreck, my job's not going well, or feel isolated, whatever. That doesn't mean all that stuff doesn't need to change still. But what it means is you can only change one thing at a time. And your ability to just take what you said earlier, one step in that direction is in and of itself the transformation starting to unfold. And that 0 to 1 is always the hardest step. Once you go 1 to subsequent 2 through 4, it's still difficult, but not as difficult. And I think that 1% is a really helpful framework to just take that first step to address the one thing in your life. And it's so specific. And I agree with you. It's almost humorous, right? Oh, turning off a light or taking a deep breath and pausing before you turn it off changed so much for that guy. But you're not going to read that in a business book. That's not going to be in the strategies. That's not going to be in the mobility plan because it's human and it's nuanced and it takes being present. And because you were present to your own life, you're able to put that out in him. I'm curious if you could speak to the 5 steps within the 1% for a guy that's looking to start to address that one thing in his life.
This is one of my favorite stories. There was this guy, he called me and he said, yeah, I woke up this morning and it's a new terrible day. My life is misery. And I told him, if you should lie, you should lie big. What do you mean? Yeah, because you should say, what a fantastic day today. Is the same lie, but the energy from what a fantastic day compared to the worst day of my life, one more disappointment. So, and then after 2 weeks, he called me again and said, it worked. What do you mean? Yeah, and next day I woke up and I was lying. What a fantastic day. And I've done it every day for 2 weeks. And I feel fantastic. So whatever you think, if you go out in the world and you think, what a fantastical life, even if it's not, it doesn't matter. It's better to lie big than to lie because it's not the worth they either. Either way, it's a lie, so it's better to lie big. What a fantastic day it is. And you will see a different world with those eyes compared to if you try to live this sad life. It's sad some days, but if you can shift it, you will be better off. That's one of my favorite stories. And it's so true. And this guy still, after many, many years, he sent me email. Do you know, I'm so grateful because you really shifted my way of thinking. It's so, so important. Only shift of thinking every day.
Yeah, I think that's so encouraging for me and hopefully anyone listening because we can have this idea of this perceived pressure of what we need to do for our life to change. And again, it's not that those things don't need to eventually change. In the moment, it is the mindset that starts everything. And it is simple but difficult. And I think sometimes in our fears and insecurities, we make it more complex than it is. And that framework you just gave about lying to yourself, if we overanalyze it, if we try to take it too literal, we avoid it. But by just saying it how it is, that's a method of getting someone to the truth. It proved itself. It worked. And I think that's what I appreciate in your method steps, pausing, laughing, releasing, change, and then rise is those are seemingly simple yet I think radically alternative steps to change. We hear all these people online talk about having a mindset shift and, you know, waking up and day and all these more generic things. There's a difference between simple and generic. There's also a difference between true. And I think what I appreciate about your approach is that you're not trying to be compelling. You're just simply trying to be true, and you're trying to tell people um, the simple reality of what it takes to actually change. So with that, I just want to thank you for choosing to have the mindset that you were worth living and not just worth living, but living a life that has been so inspiring.
So because that's where I love the first thing. There is many things I like about Thailand. We haven't talked too much about Thailand. The first thing I love about there is no time here. But the second thing is that you have to be you in Thailand. You can't have different masks mask on you. You know, but when I don't want to do something, then I can put up this mask that people, oh, he don't want to do this. But if I do that in Thailand, people say, what are you doing? What do you mean? Because then it's not me. It's not the enemy. So what I have learned most of my 15, 16 years here in Thailand is to be me full out. Because if I'm not me full out, I you can never be accepted yet. And most people, there is a lot of crazy stuff here, like in the Western world, but that's genuine. That's so because that's the key to be you. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And I think that's a good note to end on. And I appreciate you being your authentic self. And I'm wondering where people can find your work and what you're up to.
My name is Mikael Avatar. Michael with a K. So Mikael Avatar. If you search me on Google or whatever, my website is michaelavatar.com. So that's the easiest way.
Okay. Well, thank you for providing that. We'll make sure to put it in the show notes. And I think your name really represents the truth that there's also no one else that's like you. And for any man listening out there, it's the same is true for you, that there's no one else like you. So own your life, get a vision, take risks, take tests, pause, be grateful, and all the other many lessons that our brother here shared today. And Michael, thank you for joining. And guys, until next time.